we're going to be looking at who can inspire our pupils, staff and families to get involved, to engage in the Great Science Share this year. I want to say, first of all, I can see some of you joining with school backgrounds, some of you joining with home backgrounds. You're welcome. And thanks to those of you who've done a day in school and are giving up your time in this twilight session to find out a bit more about the Great Science Share too. Really appreciate your time. And in true Great Science Share fashion, this is going to be a collaborative and inclusive event, so please do join in and share. There'll be opportunities to pop things in the chat. If you'd like to have your video on, that's lovely. I get to see little faces, but I do also understand if you're somewhere where that's not possible. I can't see all of you on my screen at the same time anyway. Okay, so thinking about science and investigations and curiosity and wondering, I'm going to show you a little demo, and I want you to have a think about what's happening in the demo. What might the science be behind it, and what might the children be thinking or wondering about it? And if you can share some thoughts in the chat as we go through, that would be great. So I'm sure many of you have seen and perhaps even used this demo, this investigation before. It's something really simple to do with a bit of paper. So I've cut out some flower shapes here out of school sugar paper, and you can use any type of paper, and in fact comparing different types of paper is really useful as well. So flower shapes, and I've folded the flowers over, the petals over, and I'm just going to put it in just floating on top of a bowl of water. So if you can pop in the chat what you think might be happening, or things that the children might say or wonder, what sort of things might they be thinking about. It kind of looks like the flower is magically opening, but obviously we know that there's some science happening behind this. So if you can pop your thoughts in the chat, that would be fabulous. So thinking about what might be happening, and I'm sure that I just saw Paul Tyler's name pop up. So hello, Paul, welcome. And we're just popping some text in the chat about what children might be wondering about what happens in the paper opening flowers investigation. So I'll just play that again so that you can see it there. So a little activity to warm us up. Holding up my paper flower, folding the petals over, and then when I put it on the water, it magically opens, or does it? What's the science happening there? So yes, excellent. The children might think that the water's making the flowers come alive, because we will have that conception that plants need water to grow. How does it happen really quickly? They might say it's growing, absolutely. Why did it happen? Is it the same with smaller or larger flowers? Excellent. So lots of further questioning coming from that and investigation as well. Does it make a difference how many petals it has? Some excellent questioning coming through as well. All sorts of directions that you could take this in, that the children can be. What would happen? What does it matter what the flower is made of? So yeah, could you investigate different types of paper? What happens if you do that? That's the kind of the school sugar paper. What happens if you do that with some printer paper or some newspaper or tissue paper? Does it make a difference? Does the fact that one of them's green and one of them's red make a difference? Why it hasn't sunk if it's absorbing water? Yes. Does it do it in milk or orange juice? See, just a few of us in a room, in a virtual room, and you have come up with so many amazing questions already. So imagine how many questions 30 children in your class would come up with from just one simple provocation like this. Excellent, thank you very much. Oh, does it happen quick if you put washing up liquid in the water? Lovely thought, I've not even tried that. So thank you for joining in and helping to make the session nice and interactive and fun. We are going to be using a Jamboard during this session. If you haven't used one already, it's basically a bit like sticking sticky notes on a board in real life, but it's a virtual one. And to get to this Jamboard, the URL is on the slide in front of you here. And I'm hoping that Kate or Steph will magically pop that in the chat for us as well, so that you can click on it and get there from then. And there are several pages. Oh, thank you very much, Kate. There are several pages on the Jamboard, and we're going to start with the first page. So the first one says ideas and resources. Now you can either, if you've not used a Jamboard before, you can click down the left-hand side. There are a number of icons. One of them is a pen. I recommend not trying to write on it because you end up with big scrawly letters. But there is a sort of a piece of paper looking thing that if you click on that will pull up a sticky note that you can type on, or you can actually type on the ones that I've put on there already, or you can use the text box to pop some text in there. So before we start showing you lots of different resources, could you pop down some resources that you might have used already, so organisations that you might have been to, websites that you might use, just so I can get an idea of what people have used already, or any ideas of things that you've used to elicit questioning from your children. So I'm hoping that you've all found, oh, I can see somebody has appeared on the Jamboard. Yes, the Explorify website is an excellent one for showing little clips of things, eliciting discussions. A whole host of activities on there. Just give you a few minutes to pop some things on there. Twig Reporter, yes, another excellent one. Reach Out Reporter. So yes, many of these resources I'm going to be mentioning this afternoon. So I'm delighted to see that some of you are using already. See Through Science, yes, an excellent book. I hear really excellent author, See Through Science. Exploration Through Play, absolutely. We can discover so much by providing opportunities for children to play. PSTT, TAPS resources, fabulous. STEM website. So we've got lots of ideas already of places we can go. So I'm hoping that in this afternoon, I will be showing you things that you've seen before, but also things that perhaps you haven't as well. Or maybe between us, we will come up with suggestions of using resources that are familiar to you in a slightly different way as well. Science Sparks, yes, another excellent website full of investigations. Other things popping up here. Forest School, yes, fantastic outdoor opportunities as well. Science Museum, YouTube channels, loads of ideas. Do feel free to keep adding things to that as we go through as well. So I'm going to show you a variety of resources from different organisations, as well as talking about different visitors and people who can inspire us in the classroom too. And some of these resources are also in an article I wrote for the ASC Primary Science magazine. So if you're ASC members, you can access that as well in the in issue 166. So we're going to start off with Primary Science Teaching Trust. So I know that that's popped up in something that people are using already. So PSTT have a whole host of different resources available. So in the lockdown, they put together lots of things like Science for One. So when we were still many children working at home, Starters for Science, and also they produced a load of really excellent resources for Science Week this year as well. There's also the I Bet You Didn't Know resources, which are bringing cutting edge research to life. So really bringing in that real world application. So they're written by Primary Science Trust fellows who had research backgrounds before they became teachers, one of whom is in the room. So there's an article that summarises a piece of cutting edge research, and it also is accompanied by teachers' notes and planning and activities to translate that into an easy to resource activity that children can do in the classroom too. So an excellent one there. But that's not all. Primary Science Teaching Trust produce all sorts of activities and support for science and STEM clubs. There's the Science at Work resources as well, so bringing in that careers focus where we can really start to bring some real world implications as well. There's the Standing on the Shoulders of Giants book, again bringing in real life scientists doing research, and not just all the old dead male ones, but a whole variety of scientists. And as I mentioned before, the Science for One and Starters for Science. There's also the City Science Stars, and I bet you didn't know. So Primary Science Teaching Trust is an excellent place to go to, as well as for their assessment materials. They've got all sorts of activities and things on there. Lots of things pinging up on the Jamboard, so thank you for adding those. All sorts of excellent things. Yes, Developing Experts, BBC Wildlife magazine, and the Facebook Primary Science Coordinators groups. There's lots of support out there as well on Facebook and on Twitter. It's really worth using social media to help you get support and ideas. How suitable are the I Bet You Didn't Know resources for Key Stage 1 and early years? I've just spotted that question come up, Sarah. Sarah, I'm actually going to ask Paul Tyler to perhaps field that question in the chat for me, as he's an author of some of those. Paul, if you wouldn't mind, that would be fantastic. I'm sure some of them are more suitable than others. So STEM Learning is also another website that's popped up on some of your suggestions as well. And the STEM Learning website is packed full of all sorts of resources. It's almost actually a difficulty to narrow things down, but they're divided into, they produce some remote lessons during the first lockdown last year. They make loads and loads of resources. There's also the CPD component of STEM Learning as well, via the Science Learning Partnerships and centrally in York. There's also support for STEM clubs, and they're also responsible as an umbrella organisation for STEM ambassadors. And I will be talking a bit more about STEM ambassadors and getting exciting real life scientists in your classroom too. And they've also got computing resources on there too. So STEM Learning, I'm sure most people have been there, but it's really worth having a dig around in their resources. So I've mentioned their STEM clubs. They've got all sorts of resources for STEM clubs and things like that. Have a dig around because there's all sorts of exciting things. The Polar Explorer program has got all sorts of fun and engaging things linked with polar science. So you can then cross-curricular link that as well if you're looking at explorers and polar science too. Fantastic resources in there. There's also, if you're teaching space or you've got children particularly interested in space, then the European Space Education Resource Office has all sorts of exciting things, including how to make a science week a space week as well. Lots of exciting things in there. And what I should have said at the earlier as well is that lots of these things can be used to inspire and help children to come up with questions for the Great Science Share, but actually this can feed into your everyday teaching and learning as well. So lots of places. So we mentioned Explorify as well. I'm hoping that lots of you have heard of Explorify. It's popped up on our Jamboard. It's from the Wellcome Trust, and a whole host of easy to pick up, plug and play activities. So it might be a zoom in, zoom out, so having a closer look at something, or a bigger question, thinking about what if, lots of misconceptions, stimulating discussion. It would be a really quick 5-minute fill if you've got a little bit of time in your day. I realise how ridiculous that sounds to teachers if you've got time in your day. But it also is going to spark interest and I wonder questions. So a really excellent way to get those questions flowing from your children as well. And thank you, Jane. The ASC are indeed doing free training on Explorify currently. I'm an Explorify champion, and I, in fact, delivered a session this week on Tuesday and some more in May and June as well. So do have a look because they're being delivered by region. But yes, free Explorify training if you're interested in a bit further. The Ogden Trust, another excellent place. Kind of physics focused, but not just physics. They do cover everything. They've got some excellent resources on working scientifically as well, but these fabulous little activity cards that you can just kind of pick up and run with, and then see where that takes children in terms of their questioning. I'm going to whiz through these a little bit more quickly because I'm conscious of time. Reach out was also mentioned in our Jamboard, both in terms of the CPD available from Reach Out, particularly if you're trying to upskill in a particular area, if you've not taught that curriculum area before, loads of opportunities on there, but also Reach Out Reporter, really great for news updates, topical news updates too. While I mentioned that, there's also topical science updates created by Paul Tyler. So Paul, I don't know if you want to pop a link in the chat to that as well. Really useful. You can sign up for that and have them delivered to your inbox of all the kind of topical science stories that happen. Paul creates those monthly, an excellent resource to use. Crest Awards are another really useful thing. Now, if you've signed up for the Great Science Share, there might be an opportunity to get involved in using the Crest Awards for that as well. So there's the Star and Superstar Awards, which are aimed at primary, but there's also the Discovery Award, which is kind of a longer, more in-depth investigation aimed at upper Key Stage 2. So the upper end of primary. Conscious that I may not just have English and Welsh schools in the room. And these are, again, really easy to pick up activities, easy to resource, simple things that you would have in school or at home. There's a teacher card and a child's card if you've not used those before. They're also great for STEM clubs, as well as being linked to the curriculum areas as well. So that's what they look like. There's more than 40 activities on there, and you can do the activities and download everything for free, but if you wish to get the badge for it, you have to have completed 8 projects, and it's £1 per each child. Thank you, Paul, for popping that in there. Sorry to make you work quite so hard when you've just rocked up to a webinar. Practical action. Schools resources are absolutely phenomenal. Cross-curricular STEM projects. You can take a small amount and just do a small bit of it, or you can expand it into a huge project. Entirely up to you. But lots of STEM around the sustainable development goals. So there's geography links and PSHE links as well, in terms of thinking about sustaining our world, which is really topical today for Earth Day too. And the NFU farming education resources are fantastic. So there's STEM to Prize, and I can see actually on our board that popped up somewhere. I've lost it now. Talking about the LEAF resources as well. So lots of things to find, linking food production and animals as well. The CIEC Industry at Home resources are great, not just for at home, but also for at school. And they've got all sorts of resources on their website, not just these as well. Really useful things there. And Gratnell's What's in My Tray activities, particularly if you're on social media, you'll see these pop up from Dr. Catherine Forsey. She creates all sorts of activities that you can pop in a Gratnell's tray and do all sorts of investigations. So lots of prompts and ideas, both for curriculum and for the Great Science Share there too. Thinking kind of a bit more nature, then I see that some of these have popped up too. So we've got the BBC Wildlife magazine, and the Woodland Trust Nature Detectives. Now they have changed their website slightly, so not quite so many of the activities are freely available, but there are still lots of things on there that are really useful, and lots of ID things for trees and twigs and invertebrates and all sorts of things. Likewise, the Wildlife Trust have all sorts of resources available, and the RSPB, and as I've mentioned, it's Earth Day today, so you will see lots of resources flying around linked to the natural world today. Linked to that, so BP actually produce a whole range of science resources, both in terms of scientists and what different jobs there are for scientists, but also in terms of STEM activities as well. And they have produced a load of environmental resources for Earth Day, which feels a little bit strange from a petroleum company, but you know, they do also invest in alternative energy sources too. So lots of activity ideas from BP. The Royal Society of Chemistry have recently relaunched their primary science website. They provide a lot of support for science teachers. including primary, and their new primary site Steps into Science is excellent. It's divided into the different ages or phases, and links to different areas of the curriculum. They have the ideas webs where you're teaching a historical topic on Romans. They've got some science links there as well as excellent demos for teachers in terms of what's happening from the science content, but also in terms of things that you can use in class with children as well. So now we're going to pop back to our Jamboard, and I'm going to ask to pop you into some breakout rooms just for 5 or 6 minutes to have a think about one of those resources that I've just whizzed through and popped up on the screen that you've not used before, to have a quick look at it and a discussion in your breakout rooms. And on the Jamboard on the page 2, so we've popped lots of ideas on page 1. On page 2, there's a what do you think page. So could you pop some ideas in there about whichever resource you'd like to choose from the ones that I've just whizzed through to have a look at. Thank you for the link to the Jamboard again, in case you've lost it. And I'll pop you out into breakout rooms, as I say, 5 or 6 minutes. Have a look at one of those resources and a chat with people in your room. And I look forward to seeing what you pop on the Jamboard in terms of the resource that you look at. Hopefully you'll be seeing please come into this. Oh, I can see people disappearing off into breakout rooms. Thank you. I can see things popping up on the Jamboard already.
That's good. Yeah, lots of ideas going about.
See if I've missed anything. Breakout rooms go really slowly when you're not in them, don't they?
It's true, I keep looking at the time and like, oh, have I missed something? But no, counting down normally, it's not slowed.
No, the poor lady was so what would you recommend in your class? I'm like, I'm not a teacher, unfortunately. So I think there are going to be other people who are better placed to help you.
You started with a bigger breakout room, Amy, sorry, but like the way people move about,
Yeah.
I hadn't spotted that you were left.
There was only me, there was only the two of us as well, so there wasn't even anyone else to sort of bounce on, so I thought she's better going into a different room.
She's in a nice room now, I think.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, I was like, trust me, you don't want to let me anywhere near a science classroom.
I'm sure you'd be good. You could act out the science.
Well, yeah, let's talk trees. Yeah. Oh dear. How many have we got today?
Sorry, how many in the meeting?
How many are there?
It's 9. I'm going to close the rooms, Jo.
Cool.
Oh, yes.
But they've got a 30-second countdown, but yeah.
I think now people know that they're recorded, they just wait for that.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, I think that's everyone back, Jo.
Excellent, thank you. I can just see people starting to ping back up. Fabulous. Thanks very much. I hope you managed to have a chance to have a look at something that you hadn't seen before or a bit less familiar with, or at least have a chat with some other people as well. We often learn more from discussing things with our colleagues than anything else. So I hope that was useful. If you'd like to keep, oh, thank you. I see another one pop up on the Jamboard. If you'd like to keep putting your comments in about the resources that you've had to look at, that would be great. Thank you. But we will move on. So another place where you can find a whole list of resources. I created this at the start of the first lockdown, just as a way of pulling things together for teachers trying to set things for learning at home, but also for families trying to access some support as well. But it's kind of evolved into a list of resources that are really useful for teaching primary science. So I can pop that link in the chat if that's useful as well, but that's another place that you can go to have a look at it. I've lost control of my mouse. There it is. I'll pop it in the chat towards the end, or if you've got a QR scanner on your phone, you could give that a bit of a ping now as well. But I will pop some things in later on. So people that you could bring into school, thinking about visitors. So there's a whole host of different people. You could have people come in and run workshops. STEM ambassadors, I mentioned earlier, absolutely excellent resource for bringing real life scientists into your classroom. STEM ambassadors are also all free, which is really useful. They're volunteers who work in science related jobs, who give up their time to do things with schools. Always useful getting those in. And of course, at the moment, actually, everybody's gone virtual, so you can get all sorts of visitors virtually into your classroom really easily. Your local secondary school might well be really useful in terms of particularly transition, but either giving you some older children to come and talk about science or do some science, or even some staff as well. There are some random people that you could also invite in. So your MP could maybe come into school and talk to children about the importance of science, perhaps in your local area. Local businesses or universities, depending on where you're based, and particularly try and harness your parent body. You'd be surprised how much science is in such a diverse range of roles, that there's bound to be somebody who uses science, whether that's a hairdresser or a particle physicist among your parent body. So definitely use those. There's also the what was Skype a Scientist or I'm a Scientist, Get Me Out of Here, where you can kind of sign up for a slot to ask questions. So there are general scientists there to answer children's questions, but also specific ones. So if you're working on a specific topic and you want to Skype and talk to a marine biologist, for example, then there's different zones for different types of science at different times of year as well. And also mentioned already on the resources at the beginning that somebody's popped up on the Jamboard is FaceTime a Farmer or Farmer Time as well. So you can get a link with a real life farmer for your school for a period of time. So every fortnight, I think it is, you'll get a kind of a Zoom call with your farmer, and you can find out all sorts of things, whether they're arable farmers or livestock farmers. All sorts of exciting things to learn about the seasons or developing animals, lots of science involved in that. So I mentioned STEM ambassadors. There are also virtual school visits, a range of organisations who are available to deliver all sorts of things, not just science, but obviously science is best. And there's a blog post available on the Great Science Share website of Ask a Question. We've got a whole host of different scientists on there with some videos and some little short bios telling you a bit about the science that they work into. And some of those are available to answer questions as well. We've also got a range of resources for helping children to ask scientific questions as well, including the question makers. And if you have a look on the website, there's more information about those. And I know some of the other webinars have gone into a lot more detail on how to use our question maker resources too. So over to you now. Can you think of anyone else that you could have come into school to inspire your children, either virtually, most likely at the moment, or in real life in normal times? If you could pop any ideas in the chat of other visitors that you might have had, or really successful visits that you've had in school, that would be great. Maybe you haven't had any visitors in school. Maybe you can't think of any other ideas. That's absolutely fine. If you want to pop things in the chat while I'm going through the next bit, that's absolutely fine. But I will move on to show you this STEM VIP resource. Oh, parents are great visitors. Yes, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. They're usually keen to get involved as well, and often makes the children really proud that their parents have come in to talk to the class too. But yes, an excellent resource to exploit seems like the wrong word, but to harness. Yeah, always start with parents, staff and families. Yes, you'd be surprised that there are so many science reps from local secondary school. Yes, absolutely. Really useful. Oh, and thank you, Steph's posted the link to the STEM VIP booklet that I've got on my screen at the moment, which is a really useful resource and a kind of a how-to guide for getting visitors into primary school and planning effectively for that. Yes, so thank you, Paul. We get parents to ask extended families, neighbours as well. So absolutely, if you think about the people that you know and the different jobs that they do and multiply that by a class of 30, then the opportunity to have exciting visitors is fantastic. I was once teaching a year 2 class, and we had a flat Stanley topic, and we would send a flat Stanley to a family member or family friend somewhere, and we could see how far flat Stanley could travel. And one child actually managed to, and then they would send them back with a picture of them. And we got one with a picture next to an Oscar because it had gone to Emma Thompson. So that was always really quite exciting. So yeah, you never know who knows who in your children's class. in your class. So yes, this STEM VIP booklet, really useful resource for effectively planning to have visitors into your school. Obviously, some visitors are going to be better than others. Some people are more confident talking in front of a group of children than others, might be better at putting the science across or whatever it is that they're talking about. So lots of hints and tips in this resource for helping you make it as effective as you possibly can, including this really lovely graphic and kind of step-by-step idea for helping you establish the culture in your classroom, creating lots of ideas for stimulus and seeking out new things. Yes, 6 degrees of separation, things you can reach just about anyone, absolutely. So I'm sure that there are wonderful people just waiting to inspire children in your local communities. So I have mentioned that there are some challenges sometimes with having external visitors in school. So I wonder if you like to include in the chat as well. So some of we've talked a little bit about, the benefits in terms of having people come in and parents being a really great source as well. But I wonder if anyone's had any challenges that they may have had to overcome by having visitors in school as well, or what some of those barriers might be to you to getting people in. You can just share that in the chat. Sometimes pitch things too high, absolutely. It's sometimes, and scientists in particular, actually, and I say that as someone with a background in research science before I became a teacher, are really quite difficult to tone down the science. So yes, sometimes we pitch it too high. And yes, you're absolutely right. Not everyone knows how to talk to children. Never underestimate the skills that we have as teachers. They're definitely not shared across the whole of society. So yes, being aware of people's limitations and maybe having those conversations beforehand about supporting them to pitch it at the correct level, and some hints and tips on how to talk to the children in your class can be really useful. And lots of tips like that in that STEM VIP booklet too. So let's have a think about some other resources that you might find on the Great Science Share website as well. So at the moment there are resources up from last year as well, so you can see some of the shares that were the science that was done last year. There's Meter Scientist resources that I mentioned earlier, so some of them are videos and some of them are a short biog and a photo talking about the different scientists and their roles that there are. There are also some recorded lessons and the question makers that I mentioned earlier, and the resource library from last year too. But from the 3rd of May, there will be the new resources coming for this year's Great Science Share as well. So in fact, the themes for this year's Science Share were announced today to coincide with Earth Day. Thank you very much for popping the link for that on the chat. So these are going to be the weekly themes that will be plopping into your inboxes if you're registered for the Great Science Share from the 3rd of May. So we've got this environmental theme, so clean air, find some space, explore the outdoors, war on waste, take action, and the wonders of water. So lots and lots of environmental topics to really inspire children to ask those scientific questions as well. So if you go nowhere else, then the Great Science Share website itself is going to provide you with all sorts of resources and ideas. And these weekly themes will be accompanied by teacher packs and activities and more specific links to organisations and websites and activities and ideas too. Thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it at the end of a really busy day. I hope I've managed to show you some things that you hadn't seen before, or at least some things that have prompted you to have a look at things that you've been meaning to for a while too. And do enjoy the Great Science Share and enjoy getting your children inspired in science and asking questions and being curious. Thanks very much for your time.